Let's freaking go. LSU needs to find a way to get this done with Braylon Moore, the center. Hopefully, this pops in the next 48 hours because I am of the belief that one of the biggest things that held LSU back last season was the lack of a talisman right up the middle that could get us in the right position at the right times. And Braylon Moore at Virginia Tech would be the perfect fit for what we need to do next season. Now, it's not necessarily that this guy is the next Ben Wilkerson. Also, shout out to the great Will Campbell, the first consensus LSU first team All American offensive lineman since Ben Wilkerson in the early 2000s. But speaking of Ben Wilkerson, he wasn't the absolute most talented center in the world, but he was actually very, very, very good. The problem with LSU center play, not necessarily just this past season, but you take a look at the last four centers that LSU has trotted out there, three of them just weren't up to snuff. One was Liam Shanahan, of course. That was a fun experiment and quote unquote fun used very liberally there. And then, of course, you look at Garrett Dellinger in the Florida State game, couldn't snap the football accurately. Obviously, he was a very good left guard. And then, of course, Charles Turner came in, saved the day. He was a pretty solid player. And then, of course, DJ Chester this past season wasn't where we needed it to be. So it is so key that LSU finds a way to get this done with Braylon Moore because I honestly do believe he would be by far the most important LSU offensive player that they would land in the portal. They have spent a lot of time recruiting him. I know Ohio State is in it for him right now, but the bottom line is he is a very solid player. And I know that sounds very weird, but the two most important transfers, of course, would be from Virginia Tech. Now, there are some people out there, not me, but there are some, and it is a little weird to bring this up because we've talked about him so much. But our boy, Mansour Delane, it is not official. LSU is not necessarily tweeted out. When they tweet out that a player is signed, that's normally a pretty good indication that it's official. That means that the powers that be have the paperwork that is needed for them to officially announce that Mansour Delane is the guy. But I just want to put that out there. If they both do end up signing, and it's official, the two best players from this transfer portal class will both be from Virginia Tech. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Braylon Moore is the best offensive transfer. There's some really good ones that we've already brought in. He is the most important, though. LSU needs a true center, and then with DJ Chester, you can move him around. So, look, I will say this as far as Mansour Delane. Carvis brings this up. Word is he might actually go to the draft. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe it's my fault that this is happening. Because when I released my film study this morning, the first words that I said was, this guy's an NFL corner like now. Like I really thought that I was watching him. I was like, wow, he had one atrocious game last year. One atrocious coverage game. And that was versus the only SEC team on a schedule, Vanderbilt. But it was the very first game of the season. And I don't think Mansour thought going into that game, hey, this would be my worst coverage game of my career. But for the rest of the season, he was pretty good. So I will say this as far as Mansour Delane. Could he be pushing towards the NFL draft? He could be. So it could be my fault. He might have watched my film study and said, you know what, I'm actually going to go pro. This guy who watches a lot of film thinks I should. I notice I didn't say I think he should go pro. I said I am shocked he didn't go pro. Huh? 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 But then, like literally, when I watched him, I was like, "Holy crap!" I haven't even started my NFL draft prep for Power Hour NFL. I honestly haven't, and I do more offensive film studies on that channel anyway. So I mostly look at quarterbacks, offensive linemen, that stuff over on that channel because that's where most of the first round picks are anyway. But I had not even really hardly heard of him. So Pagan says, yes, you could blame me if that is indeed what happened. Might have happened. Mansoor might have watched his film study and said, you know what? That 5'7" chubby Bruno Mars, who is shaped like a walrus, seems like he knows ball. So maybe I should listen to him and go to the pros. I will say, I did a lot of research putting that video together this morning, a lot. In his first, like, real lengthy interview, he said how much the NFL meant to him. Just putting that out there, okay? So, for me, I was like I said I would have him as a 3rd round pick, which is pretty good, pretty good. Remember, defensive players don't go in the 1st round hardly ever. If they do, it's normally an edge rusher or a corner. So, we'll see what happens there. I do think he's gonna play for LSU next season because LSU is willing to fork over what needs to be done, okay? Now let's go to Cliff. How impactful do you think Jamari Butler will be as an edge rusher? So, I have not done my Jamari Butler film study, um, just yet. I've not released that. I started on it. One weird thing about him is it is so vitally important that you go watch these guys. Uh, and I know a lot of you come to me because I actually do sit and watch every player, and I don't just spit out takes on guys that I have not seen. Okay. The problem with Jamari Butler is he doesn't have a lot of edge rusher reps. He has a lot of 3 technique reps because Nebraska runs this 3-3-5 stack, or they did with Tony White, and they put him over offensive guards a lot of the times in passing situations. The good thing is we do that as well. So that's not really that big of a deal. And yeah, I mean, he has some good edge rusher reps where he is flying off the edge as well. So he doesn't have your traditional like defensive end kind of reps, and we do mostly play 4-man fronts, but he's solid. He's very solid. I will be straight up with you though. Jack Pyburn is the real freaking deal. He's good. He is a very, very good football player. And I understood why he left Florida. I understood why LSU did what they did. Okay. But yes, if you want to blame me for blame, I am the guy you can blame. Huh? 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 Now, I say hi to each and every one of you. We're going to get to as many of your comments on this glorious Wednesday hump day evening. We're also going to talk about the rest of the SEC. Okay. Because obviously, Garrett Nussmeier getting his weapons has been such a big talking point. Does LSU need to go out there and get a running back? Is that one thing we're kind of overlooking? But you're bringing in 3 starters for Gary Nussmeier to throw the football to next season with Bauer Sharp, Nick Anderson, and Berrien Brown. Now, are any of those guys as good as CJ Daniels and Kyron Lacey? I'm not sure if any of them are as good as Kyron as being the true X, but what I do think is important to this conversation, and you guys know I am a huge Kyron Lacey guy. I've spoken to people in Kyron's camp. I have defended him. I also, of course, roasted him like everyone else for the big drops. One thing that was undoubtedly true was Garrett forcing him the football. I mean, forcing him the ball to the point where it was hurting the team. And the thing that people get wrong about quarterbacks, you could take a look at all the great quarterbacks, and I'm talking about the absolute best of the best quarterbacks. They have never been the quarterbacks who throw to a guy just because he's that guy. Now, let me repeat, the best quarterbacks have never just thrown to a guy just because he's the guy. Now, in some reps, do they just say, hey, one-on-one matchup, I'm trusting my guy to make a play and you throw the football in traffic? Sure, there's some of that. But the best quarterbacks throw to the guy who should be targeted. They throw to the best option. Go look at any great quarterback. That's who they are. And it's hilarious when you take a look at so many of the best quarterbacks at the NFL level and how many of them have won the game's biggest prize after their best receiver left. Mahomes has still been able to win 2 Super Bowls without Tyreek Hill. And Andy Reid ended up being more successful after what he had with Terrell Owens with the Eagles. Tom Brady won all his Super Bowls without Randy Moss. Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl without Megatron. Now, there's more to it than just that. It's a very basic, overarching argument. And those guys do make your team better. But the point is, you never want an offense where a quarterback is tunnel visioning the football just because you have the most rapport with that guy. Okay. Just because you did. Now, of course, there are plenty of Super Bowls where guys have won with their alpha receiver. That's not my point. It's that you never want to be in a situation where your quarterback is throwing the ball just for the sake of throwing it to that player. And it was blatantly clear last year that Garrett was in that spot where he was forcing the football just to one guy. So is the LSU offense better with Kyron Lace than not? Yeah, it is. But there is an added benefit because Garrett going into next season is going into a tabula rasa, clean slate outside of Aaron Anderson, where Aaron is just going to be open. He is the intermediate guy. So, I do think even though we are going to miss Mason Taylor and CJ Daniels is gone and Kyron Lacy's gone, there's going to be so many new faces in this wide receiver room and you're worried about chemistry. It might not be the worst thing. Okay. It might not be the worst thing. And obviously, tight ends are different than wide receivers. Very different. Okay. So let's talk about Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelsey. I'm glad you brought it up. Tight ends are schemed differently than receivers. And both of those guys, if you were to go watch it, I've done a lot of breakdowns on this on Power Hour NFL. A lot of their targets were on leak plays. Okay. Like plays where they start off blocking and now they're open. And even then, those quarterbacks played when they threw those guys the football, they're throwing it to them because they were the best option on that play. That was a major. I do feel Garrett this past season. And once again, only he can answer this. Only he. Not even the OC can really answer this because, you know, every play gives a quarterback freedom to do what he wants. But my inclination when watching the LSU passing attack last season was we force fed Kyron a little too much. We predetermined, let's get the football to Kyron. Okay. So that's basically it. Once again, it's not the best point as far as a great NFL receiver leaving, whatever. And I did say all those offenses are better. The Chiefs' offense, of course, has not been nearly as good since Tyreek has left. I'm just saying offenses are better served when your quarterback is not just throwing it to someone just to throw it to them. Now, one thing I hope LSU told every wide receiver when they came here, you are going to not get X amount of targets. You've got to earn your right to be an LSU wide receiver. This is not the school where you need to beg and plead people to come play wide receiver. To play center? Yeah. Yeah. That's why we led the show with Braylon Moore today. Now, and we're gonna get to all your comments. I thought it was so unfreaking believably rich that Alabama's athletic director, Greg Byrne, released a very long statement about, yeah, Alabama, their NIL collective. Y'all, every single person, every single SEC program is trying to figure this out. So while we were probably, and especially of the elite schools in the SEC, we're probably the most disorganized when it comes to the NIL stuff. And I said it at the time. I don't back down from my comments. Some of that is results. All of us can see it, and some of it is just, you know, when you've done this as long as I've done it, you just hear things from people in the know. Y'all, we are organized. Are we totally organized? Do we have everything down pat? No. But, buy your traditions, monthly options, those things add up. Ryan Kelly, 1 million donation, anonymous 1 million donation, those things add up. Using money that other players are going to get to give to other players, those things add up. Resource allocation, all those things. So guess what? The premier program of the past couple of decades is trying to catch up. Alabama said in their statement, we're behind. We're behind. And look at the schools who are killing it in the portal right now. LSU, who Alabama plays every season, Auburn, Texas A&M, who they don't play, but still a school that they actively recruit against. And then, of course, Texas. And, of course, they don't play Texas either next season. But you get the major point, right? Every school's trying to figure this out on top of the revenue sharing. I did find it a little bit rich because, well, we all remember the Keishawn Boutte saga from years ago. Some of us might not remember. Now, I'll be honest. I don't know everything about that saga. What I can tell you, though, is that there was real smoke, Keyshawn in Alabama. A dirty game that we love. But who gives a rip? Okay. Let's go to Carvis. Honestly, this is one thing I think about quite a bit, and I kind of keep it to myself. You know, Jayden is such like a nice guy. Now, of course, obviously, I've never met Jayden. I've gotten to know people really close to him, but and one in particular that's in the circle. All right, Jayden is a team first guy. He's going to do and say the right things. But y'all, I'm sorry. Okay, I have never seen a wide receiver bring down an offense like Kayshawn did in 2022. I mean, it was so like he was not the right slot guy for our offense. Okay. Yeah, like that's not the guy you want being force fed the rock. Okay. That's why if you go back and just watch a lot of my lives, um, I was very high on BTJ going into that final season. I don't think any one of us thought it would be like spectacular, but I thought he would break out uh, that in 2023. But I was like, we have got to give Jayden a better slot wide receiver, someone that we can trust. And we all know Jayden and Malik are peanut butter and jelly. So part of why I was slamming the table so hard, let's play Malik Neighbors in the slot a lot, is because, well, Kayshawn was not a good slot wide receiver. Now, I'm not saying he didn't do good things, but whew. Now, let's see here. Texas got a golden parachute with their SEC schedule. Yep, they did. Carter, with how many transfers there are, do you wait for them to sign to study them or visit? Because I was wondering what you know about the transfer from Washington State visit. So I won't go over, what I'm going through right now personally. But, I do wait until I actually hear smoke. So if you hear me say I'm putting together X film study, that means that boots are on the ground. But now, since I did the Zachariah Poyser and now the Luke Haas film study wasn't that hard because I watched so much Arkansas football. And that's why the Oklahoma ones weren't too hard because, for Bauer Sharp it wasn't hard. Nick Anderson was different. I wait till I hear like real steam. Because they do take a while. Because I do, and this is something, it's a very minor part of when I watch a player or get an opinion on a player. I do like to watch them in a podcast interview. All right. And you can learn a decent amount about a player in a podcast interview. Now, you obviously can't see if they can play or not. I'm not saying that it's like something I hold in super duper high regard, but it is something. And I will say that one I found on Mansour Delane as a true freshman was very impressive. Okay. And it does seem like he has very high knowledge of the nuances of the game of football. Okay. All right. So, James, this is a very good question. Are there any players currently on CFP teams that LSU has interest in? Yes. One that visited Sadira Mitchell. Okay. Now, I will say I was traveling for my father-in-law today, but last night I was told he was visiting. So I don't know how that visit went today. I will say LSU wants another DT. Now, I know it sounds crazy because our defensive tackle room is populated right now. But let me ask you this. And this is, I don't want anyone to take what I'm about to say as being very disrespectful, because a lot of you know that I feel spring football overall is overvalued. Now, let me ask you guys a question. And this is just a theory. Where did LSU struggle on the offensive line this past season? All right. Where did they struggle? Well, they struggled up the middle. All right. In actual bullets flying games, they struggled up the middle. Now, I am about to float a theory that might hit you like a ton of bricks. Okay. And it's part of why I want LSU to bring in Mitchell and a few other DTs. It's coming up after this.
It's Power Hour LSU.
PHL, extra little bit of swag, an extra little bit of taste.
Yeah. Man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter, man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter, man, I'm headed.
Home is where the heart is, and our friends at NOPOD Roofing really takes that to heart. 504-810-8744. Give them a call today for all of your roofing needs. And one of my favorite things about NOPOD Roofing is their versatility. They not only do roofing, they do siding, they do painting, they do tree removal, fencing, anything home improvement. Our friends at NOPOD will get you straight. Give them a call today at 504-810-8744 and let them know PHL and Carter the Power sent you. We never overpromise and always over-deliver with NOPOD, baby. Let's go. Book your 360 spin booth experience today with Zion Imaging. Yes, that's my buddy Jaron Thomas who started this venture years ago. And look at the smiles on these faces. This state-of-the-art photo booth is so incredible. I work in the wedding and event industry, and anytime I see a 360 photo booth, it takes your event, whether it's a reunion, a wedding, a conference, no matter what it is, it takes it to another level. Give them a follow on Facebook. Book them today. There is a special deal going on now where you can get up to 40% off. This is all the info. Give them a call today, 318-469-4265, or go to Zion Imaging. That's XYAN imaging.com. Alrighty, so LSU's spring last season, their starting rotational defensive tackles were Preston Hickey, Preston Hickey, who is now at Northwestern. He was a walk-on, got a scholarship. I love Preston Hickey. He was loved in that room. Kimo Makanele, all right, who barely played at all this season, if at all. And that's practically it. I mean, Sean Washington was in there. He was a semi-rotational piece, as was Jacoby and Guillory. So, part of why I think the middle of LSU's offensive line struggled, in particular at center, is because we weren't practicing versus the best. You know, we were practicing our 1v1s, our starting offensive line versus defensive tackles who are now at non-Power 4 schools, FCS schools, guys that are moved over from offensive line to the other side of the football. And I think it's huge. That's why I think spring football can be very misleading, and why I there is a strong piece of me that thinks maybe we practice too much in the spring, because if you're weak at one position, you have a lot of reinforcements coming in the fall, it could mislead you. Okay. Because in spring last season, based on people that were at practice every single day, based on media members, based on other players on the team, they felt the LSU offensive line was carving people up, in particular, gashes up the middle. So you need defensive tackles. You do. Now, before we get out, might not go too long today. Once again, next 10 to 15 minutes, we'll keep going. Actually, I can go late. I've already taken care of everything I need to take care of, but I like to keep Wednesdays an hour. All right. I do want to talk about a few of the transfer portal players. So there is the Washington State offensive tackle, whose name I cannot pronounce. All right. I think it was Pegasus who asked about him a little bit earlier. I have not watched him. Fasumu, I don't want to butcher his name. And just in case if he's watching right now, thinking I think less of him. Obviously, LSU needs as many offensive linemen that they can get in the portal. All right. So I'm excited about him. There is one player who has some feelers out at LSU. I would love to have him. And his name is Patrick Payton. He is an edge rusher out of Florida State. I think in the past he wore number 56, and I think he switched to number 11. They're at Florida State, okay? there were quite a few people that were frustrated with him for whatever reason. But the bottom line is when the dude was on the field, he made plays. It's just that simple. When he played, he made plays. Patrick Payton. Now, who is he and who is he not? So as we know, Florida State has always been a good front seven school, and they just had 2 defensive linemen selected in the NFL draft, Braden Fisk and, of course, Jared Verse. And Peyton played alongside those guys, and he's a bender. He is a lankier bender type of player. So he's not built out thick like a Savion Jones or Jack Pyburn, if you will. But he's good, man. He's good. He's got some real lanky bend to him. Now, I will say there was a lot of Florida State fans frustrated with them for whatever reason. I really don't know why that's the case, but there is something. Patrick Payton, remember the name. Okay, I would love to have him. I absolutely would, because the dude can fly off the edge. Now, I know that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because LSU's already brought in 2 edge guys, Jamari Butler and Jack Pyburn. And they still have quite a few edge players. Dylan Carpenter's still there. Obviously, Gabriel Relaford is someone that a lot of you are high on. I am as well. Savion Jones. You know, there's still some good pieces in there. But I would not mind Patrick Payton at LSU at all. Okay? Once again, it's important to know who he is and who he's not. Him and Pyburn, they're both edge players just in name only. They couldn't be more different. They couldn't be more different. Tony, what's good? So Savion Jones gone. Is that for sure? I don't believe all his eligibility is used up. Might be wrong on that. I do like the fact that Braden Swinson is playing in the bowl game. Let me see. But his eligibility could be used up. Let me check here. See. That's not what I wanted to see. Okay, this is what I wanted to see right here. Let's go here. No, I mean, he played in 5 games. Oh, so the you see, this is what I was thinking. The Kansas State game burned his red shirt as a freshman. So, yeah, he's gone. See, I was thinking the whole time, I was like, well, the Kansas State game. Oh, man. Yeah, it was the opposite Garrett Nussmeier thing. So Kansas State was his 5th game as a freshman, but the bowl game rule had not been set in stone. But yeah, he is going to a postseason bowl. I don't know if he's Senior Bowl, but I did remember reading he was going to some post-game bowl. So yeah, now if he for certain is gone, then Patrick Payton becomes an even more important piece for LSU. Okay. But yeah, it was always in the back of my mind. I was like, well, Jones only played 4 games in the bowl game. And I was like, no, it's the opposite. It's the opposite Garrett Nussmeier effect. Man, I am shocked he played in the bowl game, though. shocked. If he had an extra year of eligibility, I would tell him to come back for sure. Now, this is a pretty big story regarding LSU's schedule next season. All right, so we'll pull up the LSU 2025 schedule. I wanted to touch on this really, really, really quickly. All right, because we're still in the early stages of this. And let's just pull this up. Bang. Okay. LSU, of course, plays Vanderbilt in Vandy 10-18. Now, I don't know if many of you saw this, but we did hear from Diego Pavia that he has been granted an extra year of eligibility. Now, I'm not going to get into his whole story, but basically he fought back saying that a JUCO year shouldn't have counted against its eligibility. It was something like that. Now, why? Why would you give him an extra year of eligibility? What is the purpose of this? Okay, well, what is the purpose? Why? Why would you do this? Y'all, if there is anything that I will stand 10 toes down on, is we have got to quit extending these eligibilities. All right, the McCormick Miami tight end, all right, who got 8 years of eligibility. Cam Rising, Alan Bowman, shout out Kevin, Alan Bowman did the respectable thing and announced for the NFL draft. We have got to talk about eligibility. Get the hell out. Turn your application in at Enterprise. Get out. So obviously Vanderbilt with Diego Pavia is a completely different team. They're really good. They're really good with Diego Pavia. Now, we beat him this year. That happened to be the only game where he sucked, was against us. But y'all, we've got to preserve this sport in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm sick and tired of we need to grant this 20th year waiver for Simple Miss Simpleton so he can long snap for Norfolk State. No, get the hell out. Get the hell out. Start a business. Pavia, please go to the CFL. Do something other than play another year of college football. If you've played 4 seasons and you wanted to work your way into granting a 5th year of eligibility, I can hear you out. Okay. Here's another message. This one comes in on Twitter. Once again, I always prefer you just send it on here so everybody could see your message. Carter, what do you think of LSU starting offensive line versus Baylor? Knowing what I know based on your analysis, I kind of want to bet Baylor because LSU's offensive line doesn't look to be too hot heading into the bowl game. So, LSU did release a clip from practice earlier today, And the starting offensive line was left tackle Tyree Adams, left guard Paul Mabenga. Your center was DJ Chester. Your right guard was Bo Bordelon. And your right tackle was Miles Frazier. All right. I give Miles Frazier a lot of credit for playing in the bowl game. I do, personally. Okay. Now, what does this mean? Well, I don't think I would have arranged them in this way, but I think it's good. I've always begged and pleaded to see what Bo Bordelon looks like as an actual college offensive lineman. I mean, this guy went on the Africa trip. This guy played tight end. He has practiced at every single offensive line position that we have. Now, is he good? Probably not. He'll probably get blown back because, he's not the absolute biggest guy. But I owe Bo Bordelon a lot because Bo Bordelon was the one who had the critical block on the Trey Holly touchdown run to give us that over in that LSU Army game. So I would have loved to have seen Bo Bordelon at center, and I would have moved DJ Chester at guard to see what you have at guard. Why not fully experiment with this? See what you got. Tyree Adams at left tackle is going to be very interesting. I give Tyree Adams a lot of credit. Went through a pretty big procedure earlier this year, and the fact that he was able to be back as soon as he was and play a lot in the Florida game, there's no way when you had the procedure, there's no way you're mentally fully ready to play. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't know a whole lot about that situation, but I like Tyree Adams a lot. This guy seems to really want to make this work out at LSU. Only a year two player as well. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do there. Paul Mabenga, of course, let's see how this experience is piled up for him. And let's see what Miles Frazier can do at right tackle. So it's an interesting LSU offensive line. So we'll see. I will never bad talk insurance agents. There's nothing wrong with being an insurance agent. Every single insurance agent that's watching this right now. Now, I'm actually wearing a t-shirt. My buddy's company in Baton Rouge. They don't do insurance, but it's kind of sort of insurance. Tri-Square Wealth Financial. Look, there's nothing wrong with insurance. If you're an insurance agent watching this right now, you're probably making more money than me. Insurance agents do well. Have a good personality and work ethic, you're probably going to be a good insurance agent. Now, one thing I'll always say is I miss the old Jake from State Farm. I don't think he did anything wrong to lose his job to the new Jake from State Farm. They need to bring the old Jake back. Old Jake did the damn thing. New Jake, he's still good. Not as good as I'm wearing khakis guy. KJ Jefferson, he's gone to the NFL. I actually pulled a KJ Jefferson card today. Actually, yesterday. Here we go. I'll give it out right now. Hell. KJ Jefferson, son of Katori and James two dogs named Apollo and Gigi or Gigi. Who's having the worst portal right now? Is a good question. There's some people that are having a broke portal. I'll tell you that. I'll save my opinions on that because I hadn't really been keeping up. Kevin M, best place to get cards graded. It's a good question. Obviously, PSA is where you want to go for the maximum value. I do recommend SGC as well. I'm a big CGC guy as well. I do a sports card show that's partnered with CGC, but I honestly don't get any money from CGC. I'm just one of the co-hosts. Full disclosure, I don't. Okay. Now, the company that quote unquote pays me to do the show, they get money and they have paid me before, but I don't get any direct. And I've also never submitted a card to CGC, but I like CGC. I do. I like their newer slabs. But Kevin, what I could do is I can get you a connect that will do all that stuff for you. So just shoot me a message at Card of the Power, Twitter or Instagram. And I could get you all set up, man. Let's go to this. CJ Daniels to Miami. Yeah, I saw that earlier today. You know, here's the thing. When I saw that tweet come out, the weirdest thing about these announcements is these national reporters are all citing the national people that are like, yeah, so-and-so is committing to Miami. His agency tells 247 Sports. I'm so sick of that stuff, man. Unless you're committing to LSU, of course. But yeah, I'm just sick of it. Like, not that you have agents or that you're making money or whatever. It's just, I don't know, something about it just seems a little. His agency. Oh, it's funny. It's absolutely funny. Like, I never would have thunk that. Sam Lowe says Alabama. Yeah, I guess you could say Alabama with the statement that they had come out. USC is burning. Okay. I'm telling you right now. I was given this information not before this past year, but 2 years ago. Lincoln Riley is not the coach you want in this era. Now, full disclosure, when the LSU job was open, my number one candidate was Lincoln Riley. That was my number one candidate. My number two candidate was Lane Kiffin. I didn't know Brian Kelly was even a possibility. But since I was so public about it, and I've always been a big fan of his, one source that knows Lincoln said to me that this is not a guy who's first one in, last one out mentality. Maybe that's just bad information. Maybe he is that at USC. I don't know. But it does seem at this juncture he is so burnt out. And my boldest take is he will be an NFL offensive coordinator, not this season, but the next. Okay, I think he just wants to call ball. Get one more big check, and then go from there. All right, we'll take a few more here. and then we'll get to getting. All right. I was talking about this with my guy Russell. This pissed me off for a couple of reasons. All right. So who stayed up to watch the end of that West Virginia game last night? Okay. If you did, number one, you're a sicko. And number two, you are my type of guy or a gal. So they did not rule this ball a fumble. All right. I'll play the play for you. Okay. Turn the volume off. Okay. So you see, there's Cole Taylor right here. Cole Taylor, this wouldn't have been the craziest. They said he started his slide now and that he was down. Why are we bailing out bad ball security? He's not down just because he's giving himself up right now. That is way too subjective of a call, and they overturn. I'm sorry, if it's close like that, you go with the call on the field. Okay. So I am out. There we go. And it is. Pow. Out. LSU. Boom. And tonight we are doing some chicken tikka masala. Let's go.